Hey everybody. Hello. Good morning. Good morning. Already someone is trying to get me to join their live. No, I don't want it. We're busy, we don't have time. Oh, this is very full. Jeez. Jeez. Shh. No, you don't have to be awake. You can be asleep. You can be asleep, honey. It's okay. You can be asleep. Yeah. You can be asleep, girl. Sleepy girl. Good morning. Go back to sleep, honey. Go back to sleep, little FOMO. How's everyone doing? So putting in coffee chutneys. My friends are here, that's right. Friends are here. There we go. Let's get the mission. It's Friday! Oh, that's exciting. I would like to go to the fair. I like a fair. I genuinely do. I think they're fun and sweet. Good morning. Ray, did you see? I passed my test. This is all thanks to you. Ray started me down a journey of insanity, and here I am with a new certification. Kind of sweet, right? Kind of sweet. Much like my coffee's about to be. Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, you can go back to sleep. It's okay. Oh, I appreciate it. She's good. The teething was pretty insane last night. Ignore my advice, y'all. Just get out of here. Oh, yes. She had a really rough batch, or like, little wake up around 4:30 this morning, 5 a.m. around then, and it was pretty rough. But then we got back to sleep for a little while, and then we played, and now we're sleepy again, I hope. Yeah. You want to look at mommy so I can tell your story? Like, she's just a little awake, but she was asleep. Go back to sleep. Because you get distracted. Yeah, it happens. We all get distracted. TikTok is not reliable. No, not with anything, let alone notifications. So we're going to finish Princess Diaries today, and then I think we're going to get to start Josh Gad's memoir, because we only have like a couple pages left of the Princess Diaries, so we'll finish it pretty fast, and then we'll move on to the memoir. Most reliablest. I need coffee very badly. Salt air and the rust on your door. That's why I've set an alarm on my phone, because I can't trust TikTok. Yeah, it's true. We can't trust TikTok. I don't really trust TikTok to do anything. Yeah, I'm really excited to read this. Thank you, Jen. I'm very excited. It's a good greeting. It's a good greeting. And it is August, isn't it? It's August 1st. By the by, and this is totally not not useful to most of you, because I know most of you are either not yet in this stage or not, or you're past this stage. However, today starts World Breastfeeding Week, just so you all know. So I'm going to be doing a series on my wrapping page. Happy fall, yes, pre-fall. On my wrap page that teaches people how to safely breastfeed in a variety of wraps and carriers this week. The first video is going to go up today, and it's going to be ring sling, and then yeah, Stephanie will need it soon. Ring sling, and then soft structured carrier, and then woven wrap, and then we're going to talk about why you shouldn't do it in a stretchy wrap, and so on and so forth. So that's a thing that you can tell someone if they are in that stage of life and you know them, you know? We gotta put the milk away, huh? We gotta put the milk away? Yeah. No, don't chew on that, please. No, here, let's get a chewy. We can't be chewing on the rings. No. How about you chew on this? You like this one. Here. How about this one? There you go. Yeah, less about like the actual breastfeeding of it all, and that is correct, Amanda, but more about like how to do it in the carrier and repositioning. When I see you feed her, get her up, oh wait, hold on. Yes. If you see me doing it, I promise I'm not hurting my baby. But the other thing I was going to tell you guys is, and this is something I think will be good, I posted a thing also offering people like quick fit checks on that page. And part of the reason that I put it up there is not because I think any of you need fit checks right now. Stephanie obviously will get me later, just, you know, by the nature of being Stephanie. But you know how you sometimes see... No, I've never heard her. You know how sometimes you might see people around that, yeah, maybe one day, right? Yes, it will come in a clutch. So, you know how sometimes you'll be scrolling along and someone says, like, and I saw one of these yesterday, someone tagged me in one yesterday, someone might be like, hey, I'm trying to wear my baby and I don't know how to use this carrier, you know what I mean? And they're showing you their carrier and they're like, am I doing it right? You know, you know what I mean, Brittany? You can tag me in their posts or tell them that I'm doing it on my page, and they can get a fit check so that we can fix these parents who are, you know, whatever. You're only feeding her, putting her in the... Yes, that's true. You're right. I do hurt her when I put her in the car, according to her. She believes that me putting her in the car is tantamount to starvation and murder. I mean, truly, she believes me to be the monster of all monsters when I do that. Yeah. Yeah, how dare I? No, truly, yes, how dare I? That is exactly what she says. She says, Mama, how dare you? Yeah, well, I hope for you, Stephanie, my dearest hope for you is that she likes the car better than my baby does, because any amount of liking it would be better, because we cannot do car. She needs to see fishies. I agree with you, Amanda. The aquarium is wonderful. She loves the aquarium. She genuinely loves the aquarium. Demon box on wheels. Yes, that's correct. Yes, demon box on wheels. What do we do with our burp cloth? Because I have drool on my arm. It's about that time that I remembered that the burp cloth is around her neck. I'm about to cancel my baby mood because 30 minutes is miserable. And oh God, yeah. Well, when is it? Do you think you'll be better by the time that you have it? That's the thing. Like, I didn't have any trouble in the car when I was pregnant, but maybe that's my payback because she's like, the one you're fostering is an angel in the car. Well, must be nice. I'll tell you what. You really are old enough not to be drilling on yourself. I'm old enough for a lot of things that I don't do, Becca. All right. Well, until the cat. You got a cat that doesn't want to go in the car? I actually had a cat that loved the car. I still drool sometimes, yeah. Oh, the car. Oh, a perfect angel until the car. Oh, it's only getting worse. I'm waiting until the week before if it gets rid of in 6 weeks. Yeah, wow. Let me tell you, I really do see better with these glasses. It's... Wow. Okay. Well, ain't that just something? Ain't that just something else? Don't be struggling. Don't be struggling. Can you lay down and go see bees? You want to go back to sleep? Yeah? Here, look. That's what they told me, Stephanie. That's what they told me. Yeah, it's weird. Well, sure, it's why I have them, yeah. 1 pup and 2 cats in the car. Cat is not a fan, but one's like, okay. Yeah, I had a cat and a dog who both loved the car, so the 3 of us would go on road trips. Like, I would just put them in the car, and we would just go places. It was great. And now I'm getting paid back for that, and now she's drilling on me. I love that she looks up at you the second. Oh, yes, it's almost time. The fact that you have a neurospicy mommy who has sensory issues and I let you drool on me and I put up with it is love. I'm just telling you, that's what love is. That's what love is. That's what love is. Okay. All right. So let's read the rest of the Princess Diaries and then we will start In God We Trust. We were in the middle of a segment yesterday, but she needed to go. The truest of loves. So when I come back to my room just now and I pick up the phone and Lily's still going on and on about Boris, really, it's like she doesn't even know I was gone. But I just really never appreciated what we had together until it was gone, she was saying. Uh-huh, I go. And now I'm going to grow old and die a spinster, maybe with some cats or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that, because of course I don't need a man to be fulfilled as a human being, but I still always pictured myself living with a lover at the very least. Uh-huh, I go. And I just noticed now my extreme annoyance with Rommel has decided... I just now noticed, to my extreme annoyance, that Rommel has decided to use my backpack as his own personal bed, and also that Granmere has very cavalierly draped her sleep mask over one of my Disney Princess snow globes. And now that I took him for granted and never let him get to second base, but seriously, he can't really think that Tina's gonna let him, can he? I mean, she's fully the type of girl who's gonna demand a marriage proposal at least before she even lets him look under her shirt. Oh, this conversation just suddenly got really interesting. Really? You and Boris never got to second base? Well, never really came up, Lily says, sounding very forlorn. And what about you and Jangbo? Silence on the other end of the phone. Guilty silence, I can tell. Right, she's 15 and gonna be a spinster, I know. Still, it's good to know that she and Boris never engaged in any full frontal chestal activities. I mean, that will make Tina happy, as soon as I can get off the phone with Lily to tell her, I mean. I wonder if Michael and I will get to second base tomorrow night. After all, I am wearing my first strapless gown, and it is the prom. Saturday, May 10th, 7 a.m. One would think that as a princess I would get to sleep on the day of my first prom, but oh no. Instead of being awakened by the sounds of birds' song like a princess in a book, I was awakened by the sound of Rommel shrieking and Fat Louis beating him senseless to get to his bowl of fancy feast. I'm having a really hard time summoning up any sympathy for Rommel. After all, if it weren't for his behavior on my birthday, we wouldn't even be in this situation right now. Although it is wrong to think that Rommel really could have behaved any differently. He didn't exactly ask Granmere to bring him along to my birthday dinner, and it is clear to me now, having lived with him for several days, that Rommel, more than anyone I know, does suffer from Asperger's syndrome. Did I say stripless instead of strapless? That's funny. And she is now diagnosed, Grandmere's dog, with Asperger's syndrome, so that's where we're at. Oh God, I can hear the Gorgons stirring now. Maybe if I go grab my prawn dress and run out the door, I can hightail it uptown to Tina's to prepare for the big night in the relative privacy of her place. Oh my God, that's it. That's exactly what I do. Why don't I think of it before? I hate to leave Mom and Mr. G alone with Grandmere all day, but really what choice do I have? This is the prom. If ever there was a time for emergency action, this is it. Saturday, May 10th, 2 p.m., Tina's place. Well, I did it. I escaped from Casa Horrifico. Tina and I are safely ensconced in her room, having our pores unclogged by the heat action mud masks. We just had our nails done at Ms. Nails down the street. Well, I basically just had my cuticles done since I don't really have any nails. And in a little while, Mrs. Hakim Baba's hairdresser is coming over to do our coiffures. So, this is how you're supposed to spend your day. Beautifying yourself instead of listening to your mother and your grandmother bicker over who drank the last of the Pedialyte. Grandmere, it turns out, likes Pedialyte with a splash of vodka. That is pretty funny. I can't believe it's stripless. A stripless gown, yes. Pray tell, what is a strip gown? Yeah, she's putting vodka in her Pedialyte, which is, you know, it's a choice. Of course, I feel bad that my mother doesn't get to share in this very important day in my formative development as a woman. However, she has more important things to worry about, such as gestating and doing her breathing exercises to keep herself from killing Grandmere. Reports from the strike negotiations are not promising. Last time we turned on New York 1, the mayor was urging all New Yorkers to stock up on such supplies as bread and milk, since we're no longer going to be able to turn to our local Chinese restaurants and pizzerias for sustenance. Really, I don't know what Mr. G and Mom and Grandmere are going to eat without delivery from number 1 Noodleson. They better hope that they can pick up some prepared food from Jefferson Market. Not that any of that's my concern, not today, because today the only thing I'm going to worry about is looking beautiful for the prom. Because today, I'm just like any other girl on her prom day. Today, I am prom princess. Saturday, May 10th, 8 p.m., in the limo on the way to prom. Oh my God, I'm so excited I can barely contain myself. Tina and I look totally fabulous, if I do say so myself. When the boys see us, we're meeting them at the prom because they had to go set up early. They are going to Plots. Of course, P-L-O-T-Z. I don't know what that means. Of course, it does suck a little that Tina and I, instead of just having adorable little beaded clutches at our sides, have to bring along a couple of bodyguards. Seriously, they never mentioned this in 17 Magazine's prom issue, you know, how to accessorize your bodyguard. You should have heard Lars and Wahim grousing about having to get into tuxes. But then I reminded them that Mademoiselle Klein was going to be there, and to my certain knowledge, she was going to be wearing a dress with a slit up the side, and that seemed to spark their interest. And they didn't even complain that when Tina and I pinned on their matching boutonnieres. They looked so cute together. It was like kind of like Paris and Nikki Hilton, minus the low-rise jeans and the nose jobs and all that. But I didn't mention that Mr. Wheaton was going to be there too. In fact, that he would be escorting Mademoiselle Klein. Somehow, I didn't think that that information would be very well received. Oh my God, I'm so nervous that I'm actually sweating. I'm telling you, turning 15 is going to be the best age ever. I mean, I already have gotten to play my first game of 7 Minutes in Heaven, and I'm going to my first ever prom. Truly, I'm the luckiest girl in the world. Oh my gosh, we're here. Hey, Susan. Be strongly affected with frustration, excitement, or, oh, okay, there you go. Saturday, May 10th, 9 p.m., the Empire State Building observation deck. I guess that's where Grandmere got the prom to be. I never thought that I would say this, but Grandmere rules. Seriously, I'm so glad that she brought Romel to my birthday dinner and that he escaped and that Django Panassa tripped over him and that Les Hachut Manger fired him and that Lily adopted this cause and created a citywide hotel, restaurant, and porter union strike. Because if she hadn't, the prom might never have been canceled, and then Lana and the rest of the prom committee would have gone ahead and had it at Maxim's instead of being forced to have it on the observation deck of the Empire State Building, something arranged entirely by Grandmere, who is like this with the owner. And Michael would have continued to refuse to go to the prom, and so instead of standing here under the stars totally rocking my Jennifer Lopez engagement ring color pink prom dress listening to my boyfriend's band, I would be stuck at home instant messaging my friends. So as I stare out at the twinkling lights of Manhattan, all I can say is, thank you, Grandmere. Thank you for being such a complete freak, because without you, my dream of entering the prom arm in arm with my true love would never have come true. And okay, it does kind of suck that we can't dance because the only time there's any music is when Skinnerbox is playing. But the band took a little break a while ago, and Michael came over with a glass of punch for me. Pink lemonade with Sprite in it. Josh tried to spike it, but Wahim totally caught him and threatened him with his nunchucks. And then we went over to the telescopes and we stood with our arms around each other, gazing out of the Hudson River, snaking silverly along in the moonlight. And well, I'm not sure, but I do think we got to second base. I'm not sure because I don't know if it counts if a guy feels you through your bra. And I'll have to consult with Tina on this one because the hand has to actually go under the bra, probably, for it to count. But there was no way that Michael was going to get under my bra, given as how I'm wearing one of those strapless ones that you feel are like tight against you the way an ace bandage would be around your boobs. But he tried. Well, I'm pretty sure he tried anyway. There's no really doubting it now. I'm a woman. I am a woman in every sense of the word. Well, almost. I should probably go to the ladies' room and just like take the stupid bra off so that if he goes for it again, I might actually be able to feel something. Oh my God, somebody's cell phone is ringing. That's so rude. In the middle of throwing. I hate when this happens to me. In the middle of rock throwing youth, too. You would think that people would show some respect for the band and turn off their cell phone. Oh my God. It was my cell phone. Sunday, May 11th, 1 a.m. St. Vincent's Maternity Ward. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I really can't. Tonight, not only did I become a woman, maybe, but I also became a big sister. That's right. At 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I became the proud big sister of Rocky Thermopolis Gianni. He's 5 weeks early, and he only weighed 4 pounds, 15 ounces, but Rocky, that's his namesake. I guess Mom was too weak to argue for Satur anymore. I'm glad. Satur would have been a lousy name. The kid would have gotten beat up for sure with a name like Satur, but he's a fighter and will have to spend some time in isolate to gain and grow. Both mother and Y-chromosomed oppressor, however, expect to be fine. I don't think that the same can be said for my step-grandmother. Granmere is slumped beside me in an exhausted heap. In fact, she appears to be half asleep and is snoring slightly. Thank God there's no one around to hear it. Well, no one except for Mr. G, Lars, Hans, my dad, and our next-door neighbor, Ronnie, and our downstairs neighbor, Verl, Michael, Lily, and me, But I guess Granmere has a right to be tired. According to my mother's extremely grudging report of it, honey, you have to stop banging your head against the rings, sweetheart. Just rest your head nicely. No bangies. No bangies. Yeah. No bangies. Just rest your head nicely. But I guess Grandma has a right to be tired. According to my mother's extremely grudging report of it, if it hadn't been for Granmere, little Rocky might have been born right there in the loft, and with no help from a midwife in attendance either. And seeing as how he came out so fast and so early and needed a hit of oxygen before his lungs really started going, that could have been disastrous. But with me away at the prom and Mr. Gianni having left the loft to go buy some lottery tickets down at the deli, translation, he needed to get out of there for a few minutes, not being able to stand their constant bickering anymore, only Granmere was around when Mom's water suddenly broke. Thank God it was in her bathroom and not out on the futon couch, or else where would I sleep tonight? Not now. Granmere apparently heard my mother wailing from the toilet. Oh God, not now. It's too soon. Yes, she's prepping for all the concerts, the banging cookies. Did he? Oh, he did it when he was teething. But she's banging the back of her head, not like her teeth. I don't know. She's just in a little bit of a wiggly mood right now. We need to cuddle. Yeah. Granmere, thinking Mom was talking about the strike and that she didn't want it to end so soon. Oh, sorry, that was Mom saying, oh God, not now, too soon. Not Granmere. Granmere, thinking Mom was talking about the strike and that she didn't want it to end so soon because it meant that she would be deprived of the delightful company of the Dowager Princess of Genovia, of course went busting into my mom's room to ask which newscast she was watching, only to find out that my mother was talking about something that she hadn't seen on TV at all. Granmere said that she didn't even think about what she did next. She just ran out of the loft screaming, a cab, somebody get me a cab. She didn't even hear my mother's mournful cries of, midwife, no, call my midwife. Fortunately, our next-door neighbor Ronnie was home, a rarity for her on a Saturday night, as Ronnie is quite the femme fatale. But she was just recovering from a bout of the flu and had decided to stay in for the night. She opened her door and stuck her head out and went, "Can I help you, miss?" To which my grandmother apparently replied, "Helen is in labor and I need a cab, and that's your royal highness to you, mister." While Ronnie ran downstairs to flag a cab, Granmere ducked back into the apartment, grabbed my mom and went, "Come on, Helen, we're going."
To which my mother supposedly replied, but I can't be having the baby now. It's too soon. Clarice, you have to make it stop. I can command the Royal Genovian Air Force, Gramere supposedly replied, as well as the Royal Genovian Navy. But the one thing in the world I have no control over, Helen, is your womb. Now come on. All of this activity was enough to wake up our downstairs neighbor, Verl, of course, and he came running out of his apartment and thinking that the mothership was finally landing, only to find that mother of quite a different kind was waddling down the stairs in front of him. I'll run to the deli and I'll get Frank, Verl said when he learned what was going on. So by the time Gramere got my mom all the way down all 3 flights of stairs, Ronnie had secured a cab and Mr. G and Verl were racing up the street toward them. They all piled into the cab, even though there is a city ordinance that only 5 people are allowed, including the driver, at one time. Something that the cabbie apparently pointed out to them, but Gramere replied, "Do you know who I am, young man? I'm the Dowager Princess of Genovia and the woman responsible for the current strike. And if you don't do exactly as I say, I'll get you fired, too." And then they sped off to St. Vincent's, which is where Lars, Michael, and I found them, in the maternity waiting room, minus Mom and Mr. G, of course, who were in the delivery room. A half an hour after they called me, I was waiting tensely to hear if my mother and the baby were all right. My dad and Hans joined us a little while later. I called him, of course, and Lily showed up a little while after that. Tina had apparently called her from the prom, feeling bad for her, I guess, sitting all around at home alone. And then the 9 of us, 10 if you count the cabbie, who stuck around demanding somebody pay him for Ronnie's stilettos digging into his floor mats, until my dad threw a $100 bill at him and then the guy grabbed it and just took off. We all sat there, watching the clock. Me in my pink prom dress, Lars and Michael in tuxes were definitely the best dressed people in St. Vincent's. If I had any fingernails before, well, I certainly don't now. It was very tense 2 hours before the doctor finally came out and said with a happy look on her face, "It's a boy." Wow, that was intense. A boy, a brother. I will admit it. I was for the teeniest second a little disappointed because I'd been hoping so hard for a sister that I could share things with, like how tonight is prom night and what I got to do and how I maybe got to second base with my boyfriend. A sister could, buy those cheesy plaques for, the ones that say God made us sister, but life made us friends. And like a sister who Barbies I could play with and who nobody could accuse me of being a baby because, I would be playing with her Barbies and I'd be playing with her. But then I thought of all the things that I could do with a baby brother, make him wait in line for Star Wars tickets with me, something no girl would ever be stupid enough to do, throw rocks at the mean swans on the palace lawn back in Genovia, steal his Spider-Man comic books, mold him into the future perfect boyfriend for some lucky girl of the future like the Liz Phair song Whip Smart. And suddenly, the idea of having a baby brother didn't seem so horrible after all. And then Mr. G came stumbling out of the delivery room, tears streaming down either sides of his goatee, gibbering like those rhesus monkeys on the Discovery Channel about his son. And I just knew that it was right, and it was good that Mom had a boy named Rocky, after a man who, if you think about it, really was very respectful and loving of women. Adrian! I just knew that my mom and I had somehow been divinely chosen for this, that together Mom and I would raise the most kick-ass, non-sexist, non-chauvinistic, Barbie and Spider-Man loving, polite, funny, athletic, not a dumb jock, sensitive but not whiny, second base getting to, non-toilet seat lever-upper that there had ever been. In short, we would raise Rocky to be Michael. Only I hereby swear on all I hold sacred, Fat Louie, Buffy, and the good people of Genovia in that order, that I will make sure that when Rocky is old enough to attend his senior prom, he will not think it is lame to do so. Sunday, May 11, 3 p.m., the law. Well, that's it. The strike's officially over. Gramere has packed up her things and gone back to the plaza. She offered to stay here until Rocky comes home from the hospital to help Mom and Mr. G until they got on some sort of schedule, but Mr. G couldn't seem to say anything but, thanks so much for the offer, Clarice, but no. I have to say, I'm glad. Gramere would only get in the way of molding Rocky into the perfect boy. Like, you can so totally tell she'd always be saying stuff to him like, "Who's my big boy? Who's my great big widow man?" Seriously, I wouldn't think of it. You wouldn't think of Gramere doing that. But when we finally got to see Rocky in his little incubator last night, that's exactly the kind of stuff she was saying, except she was saying it in French. It was totally revolting. It's kind of like how now I know why my dad has so many issues forming lasting relationships with women. Anyway, the restaurateurs finally caved into the demands of the busboys. They will now all be receiving health benefits and sick time and vacation pay. Well, all except for Jangbu, of course. He collected all the money from his life story and he flew back to Nepal. I guess the city life didn't really work out all that well for him. Besides, in Nepal, all that money will provide him and his family with financial stability in life, not to mention a palatial mansion. Here in New York, it would have barely been enough to get him a walk-up studio in a bad neighborhood. Lily seems to be getting over her disappointment of not having gotten to go to the prom. Tina gave her a full report about how after Michael unceremoniously abandoned the rest of the band in order to escort me to the hospital, Boris took over lead guitar, even though he'd never played guitar before in his life. But of course, being a musical genius, there's no instrument that Boris can't pick up almost instantaneously, except for maybe like the accordion or something like that. Tina says after we left, things got a little out of hand, and Josh and some of his friends were leaning over the side of the observation deck, seeing if they could hit stuff below with their spit, and Mr. Wheaton caught them, though, and gave them an all and in-school suspension. Lana supposedly started crying and told Josh that he'd ruined the most special night of her life, and that this is how she was going to be forced to remember him when he went off to college next year, hawking loogies off the side of the Empire State Building. Sweet. As for me, well, I don't have to worry. When Michael goes off to college in the fall, A, it's just going to be uptown, so I'm going to see him all the time anyway, or at least a lot of the time, and B, the memory I'll have of him is not hawking loogies off the side of the Empire State Building, but instead of turning to my dad in the maternity waiting room and saying, after I'd asked Dad for the millionth time if I had a baby brother and I could stay the whole summer in New York to get to know him, and Dad for the millionth time replied that I had signed a contract and I had to stick to it. Actually, sir, legally, minors can't enter into contracts, so according to New York state law, you can't hold Mia to any documentation that she might have signed, as she was under 16 at the time of making it, so that would be invalid. Hey, Isabella. Whoa, so totally righteous. You should have seen my dad's face. I thought that he was going to have a coronary right there and then. Good thing that we're already at the hospital just in case he keeled over. George Clooney could have just rushed over with a crash cart, but he didn't keel over. Instead, Dad just looked at Michael with a very hard face. I'm happy to report then Michael just looked right back at him, and Dad said grimly, well, we'll see. But you could tell that he knew he'd been beat. Oh my God, it's so great going out with a genius. It's really so great, even if he hasn't, mastered the art of strapless bra removal yet. So I finally got my room back, and it looks like I'll be staying in the city for at least the majority of the summer, and I have a baby brother, and I wrote my first actual story for the school paper and published a poem, and I think my boyfriend and I might have gotten to second base, and I got to go to the prom. Oh my God, I am so totally self-actualized again. Ha ha ha. Well, guys, Mia is self-actualized. I was reading that fast because I wanted us to be able to start in Gad We Trust today, so I kind of sped through it. Let's see if I can show you guys the cover. It's a very amazing cover of this book. Oh, I guess I can't. Oh, well, you can look it up. It's a great cover. So the foreword in this book is by Sacha Baron Cohen. So we're going to go ahead and start reading it. Let's go. In Gad We Trust. Forward by Sacha Baron Cohen. It does match Mia's personality, yes. I wouldn't have done it with like Hunger Games where you have to kind of like, I first heard that Josh was writing an autobiography in 2022. When he told me, I said, wow, so you must think that the actor's strike is going to go on for ages. And he said, no, I need to tell my story. And I said, what? And he showed me the advance that he was offered. And I said, can you ask them if they'd like to hear my story as well? And he said, no, they wouldn't be interested. And I said, can you at least ask? And 2 weeks later, he claimed that he did. And I was suspicious, and I asked for email proof, which he did not provide. He ghosted me for another 2 years until yesterday. Imagine my surprise when Josh asked me to write the foreword for his autobiography. And I said, do I have to read it? And he said, read 2 chapters and you'll get the idea. And I said, fine, 2 chapters, that's nothing. And if I had bothered to read those 2 chapters, I'm sure it would have reinforced what I already knew about Josh, that he is in the top 3 Afghan Jewish Floridians in the business. I learned so much about myself through the simple act of not reading this book. Josh is not only one of the 3 funniest people that I've ever met in my life, he's also one of the most brilliant, with the most effortless ability to create legendary comedic characters out of pure imagination, and sometimes a little bit of snow. He is also undoubtedly one of the kindest people I've ever met, someone who fights for democracy, liberal values, and the well-being of others. I hope you do enjoy this lovely book whose cover I admire and cherish, and that you leave it a better person, because you should know that whatsoever you are, you pale in significance compared to Josh Gad. It's likely that most of you reading this will conclude the final chapter and feel that you are miserable in comparison. That's how perfect he is. I love you, Josh, very much. That's amazing. What an amazing start to a book. I didn't read it, but I love the guy, is what he basically said. We all pale in comparison to Josh Gad. It's fine. I mean, comedians, you know, what can I say? Okay, so I told you guys this yesterday, but in case anyone, and it was so funny, in the book, sweetheart, in case anyone didn't know this, before we get into it, I want to say the thing that I'm looking forward to most hearing about is his experience in spelling bee, because I saw him when he was an understudy in spelling bee before he was any kind of famous, and I'm like wondering what he's going to talk about that. So just want to put that out there, that I'm going to get really excited when that comes up, because I was there like one of the first times that he got to go on. Very exciting. Okay, book 1, Of Childhood Dreams, Teenage Schemes, and College Themes. Gaddism. Dreams can become reality, and reality can become dreams. And when you envision something long enough and work hard enough, the sky's the limit. Unless your dreams are about being bitten by a bat. That's a sign of bad luck, or rabies. Then please do not follow your dreams. Number 1, How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love to Clown. I have very few vivid memories of my early childhood, being dragged to the Karate Kid Part 2 in theaters and screaming at my brother because I didn't understand what sequels were, and I thought we were just seeing a movie that I had already seen 1,000 times, and being confused by the montage clips of the first film, and then overwhelmed with joy that we were getting all new adventures for Daniel and Mr. Miyagi. And then I was being introduced to a game called Doctor by my friend, and wondering why she also didn't have a pee-pee in between her legs, and holding what I thought was a toy snake, only to have my mom pry it out of my hands, and it started to slither up and wrap around my arm, and then I vomited all over my mother and father on a plane after we landed in New York, saying, "Oh God, I feel so much better," as they both violently gagged. But amongst the most vivid images I have to this day, my mother threw my father out of our house. My parents' bedroom had 2 mirrored closets that faced each other, creating an illusion of infinity reflections of whatever was positioned in front of them. On this particular day, my mother was hurling Dad's luggage and clothes at him as he was laughing it off, with my brothers holding on to me as I bawled in a state of confusion and fear. I had never heard my mom scream like that, and I didn't understand why my dad would have to leave. After all, infidelity isn't usually a topic taught in kindergarten alongside hygiene and the alphabet. I didn't realize it then, but this would be our last day together as a family. It was also my radioactive spider bite inception moment. Like Peter Parker turning into Spider-Man, this was the moment that I would turn all of my equivalents of far less physically fit and all lacking superhuman powers version of Spider-Man. The trauma of going from a full family unit into a broken household in a matter of minutes was fairly earth-shattering to me, but it would also set me on a course to become an entertainer that I would one day be. But every origin story has a beginning, and mine, like many of those before me, in a hospital, followed by a strange bearded man cutting off a piece of my D word as strangers clinked glasses together to celebrate. I was born on February 23rd, 1981, Fort Apache in the Bronx. It was the Fort Apache, the Bronx was the #1 film at the box office, and the #1 song was I Love a Rainy Night by Any Rabbit. There was a failed coup d'etat staged by King Juan Carlos I of Spain, and back at Memorial Region Hospital in Hollywood, Florida, I was staging my own coup on my mother's uterus. On an unusually crisp winter night, I was born at 21 inches, 6 pounds, 10 ounces. This was the last time I had a reasonably healthy body mass index. Hi, baby. In what is a perfect example of my parents' relationship in my early childhood, my father was casually finishing his dinner as my mother went into labor and pleaded with him to hurry up. I was hardly an accident, but barely a victory. I think my parents, who already had 2 boys, Jason and Jeffrey, then ages 10 and 8.5, were desperately hoping for a little girl. They had even picked out a name, Jacqueline. Well, I popped out, and my surprise penis made it slightly difficult to go with the pink layette that they had confidently purchased for me. My older brothers were so annoyed that my mother and father were having a 3rd child, much younger than them, that they insisted that my parents at least give me a J name so that it complemented their first initials. My mother conceded, and that's how Joshua was chosen. After 2 nights at the hospital, my parents brought me home to their North Park Road house in the residential community of Emerald Hills, a house they had moved into only 6 months prior, after spending previous few years bouncing between Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and East Meadow, New York, the peanut butter and tuna geographical crossovers. After lengthy research, they determined that the one place that could marry all things Brazilian with all things New York was South Florida, and more specifically, Hollywood. Hollywood, Florida. In the multiverse of Hollywoods, this is the villain one. Lacking the romantic hills and the movie star glitz, Hollywood, Florida is the less exciting little sister of Miami and the more exciting big brother of Hallandale. It lacked in marquee venues. It made up for it, though, in 7-Elevens and run-down beachfronts. In all truth, I have very warm memories of my childhood in Hollywood. I loved my friends. I loved my community. I loved my neighborhood. And while Hollywood, Florida is often the punchline, for me, it was the perfect place to start my journey. My parents had decided to settle in Florida because it was easy for my father's business commutes. Whereas most of my friends' fathers were in fairly pedestrian vocations, doctors, lawyers, business owners, my father was an emerald dealer based out of Columbia, not South Carolina, South America. My father and his brothers had a company called AmGad, which owned multiple emerald mines. They would mine the caves outside Bodega and then sell the refined jewels out of their offices in New York City. And as you can imagine, if you've seen Narcos, the workings of Colombia in the early 80s were, shall we say, fraught. Bedtime stories were often a mix of which one of his new friends has relentlessly been assassinated, along with what new technology, my favorite being night vision goggles of sorts, his security, what technology his security people were using to monitor his finca. Oh, it's a South American farm of sorts. A finca is a South American farm. And they would what spot would be snipers, a precision killer of sorts, would be found in. Essentially, my father's life was Disney's Encanto by way of Scarface. My parents had a diverse upbringing, about as diverse as one could imagine. My father's upbringing is an Onion headline, a Jew born in Afghanistan. He was the son of a rug salesman named Nissan and his second wife, Rivika, and one of 14 children, 7 siblings and 7 half-siblings from Nissan's first marriage. According to my father, his family was nomads, escaping persecution from one part of the Middle East to the next. You can apparently trace my lineage back to the early tribes of Israel, where we were dislocated by the Assyrians, never a big fan of them, in 723 BC. Tough year for our people. Over the next 2,000 plus years, we took up residency everywhere from Iran to India, ultimately settling in the picturesque Afghanistan. Surprisingly, in the late 40s, when my father was born, there was a fairly sizable population of Jewish people in Afghanistan. He was born in a town called Herat, where life was anything but normal. Electricity was not operational. Instead of soccer, locals played a game called goat pulling that involved 2 teams essentially scoring points on each other, not with a ball, but by throwing a headless goat carcass into a goalpost. Imagine being that soccer mom. Meanwhile, school, usually a safe refuge, was also fairly unorthodox. My father has a history of embellishment, so please take everything that follows with a very large grain of salt. Having said that, one distinct memory that my father has of the age of 4 was he was outed by his classmates to the teacher for bringing a balloon into class. The teacher took him aside, tied his feet together, and ripped a considerable branch from a large tree. The teacher then had the students take turns beating my father until he could barely walk or see. And when my father stumbled home, his dad was outraged. He gathered a mob, returned to the school, and told the teacher that if she ever allowed an assault on my father to take place again, the group would take a very large branch and beat the teacher violently with it. Again, just a reminder for you as much as for me, this was all over a children's balloon. But such was life in Afghanistan. At 9 years old, my father and his family moved to Kabul by bus. I'm fairly certain that this was not a Greyhound. If life in Herat was hard, Kabul wouldn't be much easier. My father recalls a story about him and a group of friends playing on a roof one day with a kite. A local boy begged my dad to borrow the kite, and having never flown one before, the boy lost control of the kite, chased it, flew it off the roof that they were on, and plummeted to the ground along with the kite. This is In Gad We Trust, Josh Gad's memoir. For the record, I've tried several versions of that sentence, and yes, they all sound equally insane. Growing up in a predominantly Islamic society as a Jew, in many ways, is culturally stimulating and rewarding for my father. He was able to learn about rituals and expand his knowledge beyond the tradition of his own Judaic background. Many of his friends were Muslim, and his father did business and shared friendships with many high-ranking Muslim officials and leaders in the community. That is not to say that there wasn't the occasional incident. On one occasion, my father was surrounded by a group of bullies, and a Quran was shoved in his face. He was told that if he did not renounce Judaism, they would violently beat him. My dad, still just a child, was terrified. His dad, a very religious man, told him that if he was ever in danger, he should just close his eyes and recite the Holy Shema prayer. According to my father, he recited that prayer, and in that moment, his father, who never in his life returned from work early, suddenly walked toward the mob at 3 p.m. His father took his walking cane and started whacking all of my father's torturers in the head, like something out of a Jewish Karate Kid. I myself am not a religious man, and I believe in my heart that it was probably mere coincidence that my dad's father showed up at precisely the right time to save him, but man, I do love the beauty of that narrative. Shortly thereafter, you know what I have to say? I agree. I'm also not religious, but it's a good story. Shortly thereafter, my grandfather and his wife decided that while Afghanistan had been their home for many years, perhaps it was time for a change. By this time, they had many friends and family in Israel, and thought it was time to return to their ancestral roots. Sadly, a few weeks before they were to depart, my grandfather, Nissan, died of a heart attack, and it boggles my mind that I have a grandfather buried somewhere in Afghanistan. All right, see you later, Naisa. My father and his family arrived in Israel when he was around 12 and a half years old. With nothing to their names, they lived in government housing, and they all found work to pay off their accruing bills. My father soon got a job in where he learned to cut diamonds. As another source of income, he became a bodybuilder at the age of 15. You literally can't make this shit up. He would also take classes when he could in between his totally normal work obligations as a teenage child diamond cutter and a would-be bodybuilder. Around this time, my father, who had never played the lottery, was convinced by a friend to buy some sort of lottery ticket where the prize was a car. Somehow, my father won the car. Realizing that he had no need for an automobile or indeed even a license to drive one, he sold it off and used the money to join his older brother Aman, who was living in Forest Hills, New York, in a studio apartment meant to house 5 men, including my father, his nephew, whom he traveled with. There's a photograph. It's really hard to see, though. Now, at 16 years of age and the only money in his pocket being from the sale of his car, my father immediately tried to join the U.S. Army but was denied because he was too young, too flat-footed, and could speak less English than Beaker from the Muppets. Meanwhile, his brother and nephew also tried to sign up for the military, but they were too immediately turned down. When they had eagerly gone to the recruitment office and begged to join the service with their broken English and Bharat attire, the officer looked both of them up and down and said, "You want to join the U.S. military? Are you serious?" They were flabbergasted and they responded, "No, we're Syrian. We're not Syrians, we're Afghanis." Suffice it to say, okay, that's funny. That's funny. I didn't read that as well as I should have. Hold on. This is funny. The U.S. guy says, "Are you serious?" And they say, "No, we're not Syrians, we're Afghani," because they don't speak English very well. That's funny. Suffice to say, the Gads were not earning their living by serving Uncle Sam. Instead, they would eventually end up servicing one of the largest markets of growth in the 1970s, fine jewels. As the Middle Eastern immigrant side of my DNA stew was breaking away from the hardships of their past to forge a new identity and pathway to prosperity, the Eastern European part of the Josh Gad equation was also coming into focus. My mother's story is less harrowing and more a traditional American dream. My mother, initially born as Sarah and later renamed to Susan to conform to more American standards, was born in Germany at the end of the Second World War. Her parents, Joseph and Evelyn, had both recently and miraculously survived the Holocaust, something I'll delve more into later. Having lost the prime of their youth, my grandparents, who had both escaped during the Death March, were looking to jumpstart their newly liberated lives. 2 of them found themselves in post-war small village in Germany called Weiden den Oberpfalz. I'm probably saying that very wrong. Sarah to Susan. Yeah, I mean, what's the point, right? I mean, Sarah seems perfectly fine. I don't know. Like, what's more American? Susan is somehow more American than Sarah? I don't know. To me, it's all hogwash. Where they attended events organized for Holocaust survivors one night, and immediately they fell in love. In 1948, they had their first child, my mom, and they soon booked passage on a transatlantic ship headed to America called the SS Marine Jumper. The boat ride over was straight out of an American tale, with my mom filling in as baby Feifel in a wooden crib that would slide from one side of the women's quarters to the other side of the women's quarters during the 2-week passage. When they arrived at the NYC seaport, now decommissioned Pier 32, they were greeted by my grandfather's relatives, who had thankfully fled to America before the war and had agreed to sponsor my grandparents and my mother. My grandfather soon got a job as a tailor for the high-end fashion house Zuckerman, who would later gain renown for, among many other things, producing dresses for everyone from Grace Kelly to Jacqueline Kennedy. Oh, that is pretty big, actually. I know, it's so amazing. How is that? I don't know. After a few years of living in a small apartment in Jackson Heights, my grandparents moved to the booming Long Island. Yeah, let me tell you a little bit how many people are going to be named Sarah in America in the 90s, right? My mom was not one to go on dates, but one summer evening in 1969, she was dragged by two friends to a mixer in Forest Hills. The girls had gone on a trip to Montreal, Canada for Expo 67, where they had met a group of Israeli men from New York who they promised to meet up with when they all got back to the US. My parents then shared a dance, and luckily for me, but horribly for their own relationship fate, they fell in love. And in 1969 they married, and shortly thereafter they had my two brothers, Jason and Jeffrey, and eventually they would move to Florida, which brings us back to my favorite subject, me. Growing up, I never wanted for money. We lived in a beautiful house in a beautiful place, and while I wasn't born with a silver spoon, it would be fair to say that I at least had half of a silver spork hanging out of my mouth. We would often travel as a family to exciting places, including New York City, Las Vegas, and even Colombia, where, as a 4-year-old, I sat in a helicopter with no doors above a massive mountain range and questioned my mortality before I even knew what mortality was. Cute little picture of him here. Adorable. Despite my father not being around for weeks and sometimes months at a time, everything felt fairly normal. My brothers and I were very close, and they often used me as a prop in their 8mm homemade films, pretending to be medics and pushing me, their dying patient, around in a mobile servicing cart. We would watch the Smurfs religiously and eat cereal from a giant green bowl that my mother would confoundingly pour multiple cereal brands into, mix things like Raisin Bran and Life together for no good reason at all. We were also a fairly religious family, walking to temple every Saturday and attending Hebrew day school for our elementary education. My parents would also throw lavish parties, including one at our house that transformed our home into a working casino with blackjack and poker tables, and it saw our covered pool become a dance floor, with me as a 5-year-old attempting to and failing to breakdance. Suffice to say, I was either too young or too oblivious, based on the seemingly blessed lifestyle we led, to see that there were any cracks in this family tale. That is, of course, until the aforementioned radioactive spider bite inception moment of my world shattering in front of the dual mirrors. But, as the old adage goes, comedy equals tragedy plus time. Well, at 5, having your mom throw your dad out of your house in front of you while everyone is crying and screaming is a pretty good dose of tragedy for a quintessential comedy origin stew recipe. Those first few weeks after the separation, my mother was in a depression-induced coma. She would essentially lock herself in her room and cry all day long, which was very understandable given the circumstances. I, however, felt helpless and scared. It's incredibly difficult to watch the person who exudes strength and confidence and protects you from the harsh realities of the world appear so raw and vulnerable and afraid. Nothing, it seemed, would break her from this spell, but I knew I had to try. From the early age of 4, I could understand the power of laughter, and at that very young age, we took my grandparents on a vacation to the Catskill Mountains to celebrate their anniversary. One night, we went to the comedy club straight out of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and watched some random Borscht Belt comedian with a name composed of mostly consonants perform a shticky routine. I was intoxicated. I couldn't understand a single joke, but it didn't matter. Every time the audience laughed, I would laugh harder. It was like Star Trek android Data studying and trying to replicate human behavior. This powerful drug called laughter felt so good, and the idea that one could wield it like Zeus's lightning bolt was invigorating. If there was one way to break my mother from her stupor, damn it, it was going to be laughter. And so, every day, I would wake up and make it my duty to try to make my mom laugh, or at the very least, smile. I would do everything from using crazy voices to contorting my face to repeating a joke that I might have heard from a movie or a show. It didn't matter. I was sharpening the blade of my skills and trying to use it to stab through the shell of trauma. Slowly, it began to work. She would crack a smile as I spoke to her in a strange hybrid Polish-Yiddish old man voice, the character that I called Professor Mahoney, who would perform strange and useless experiments in his laboratory. Dr. Hemifron, anyone? And I was an expert on all things that were not at all useful. I would pull my underwear up to my nipples and run around the house like a grown baby, letting out creaky wails that sounded like an ostrich being strangled. The smiles came guffaws, and I was so suddenly drunk with the power that my mother got a call one day from my elementary school teacher saying, We have a bit of a problem. Your son is walking into class after the bell screaming, Lucy, I'm home. And not only was my mother suddenly woken up from her slumber, but I was now trying to make everyone laugh at all times. Picture. At the time, I didn't understand the pain that I was so desperately trying to overcome, not just my mother's, but others and my own. Despite my newfound addiction to laughter and comedy, I was spiraling. My father would visit sporadically from Colombia, treat me to a fun weekend here and there, and then take off again almost as quickly as he arrived. On one of those weekends, he took me to a Sheraton hotel in Fort Lauderdale and told me that he had a surprise for me. While I had been hoping for and slightly expecting a dog or a toy, I instead got a half-brother from Colombia and the mistress responsible for breaking up my family. I was so confused that I was enraged. Unlike my mother and my brothers, who at this point were both in college and luckily didn't have to deal with this bullshit brigade, I was completely unaware of why my parents had separated. For starters, the idea that my father had an entirely different family in South America was definitely not in the top 200 reasons that I would have suspected for their separation. And suddenly, here I was, 8, with a little toddler and his Spanish-speaking mother whom my dad had thrusted on me. I was completely lost. Not only had he left my mother and my family for his Colombian menage, but he was now planning on buying them an apartment in North Miami Beach and apparently wanted me to chill with them on a few occasions when he would come to visit me. And then, to add insult to injury, my dad told me that I couldn't tell anyone that he had introduced me to them. This one moment would truly have a lasting effect and lasting consequences. My schoolwork suffered. I would lie about everything, small and big. I would use food to compensate for my feelings. This was the beginning of my lifelong struggle with weight. It felt easier to use carbs instead of words to express my grief. My mother quickly realized that I needed an outlet to focus my energies on before I was derailed by the chaos that my father had introduced into my life. So when she saw a clipping in the local paper for a children's theater at the Hollywood Playhouse, she signed me up and I immediately became obsessed. While I was a goofy kid at school, formal acting wasn't something... Sorry, I had to prove that I was human. Formal acting wasn't something that I had any experience or relationship with. I had dabbled with the occasional elementary school show, and sure, I stole the 1985 production of Beth Shalom's Professor Green and the Shemach Machine, Shema meaning joy in Hebrew, where I played the title character, a robot, not to brag. For this breakout performance, I wore a large cardboard box with magic marker drawn on buttons and knobs and sang lyrics such as, I'm the Shemach Machine, I run loose in the city, no one can stop me, my songs are too witty. Yeah, I have to prove I'm a human while someone's sleeping on their lives. Yeah, seriously. It was truly groundbreaking stuff. But other than that, the idea of acting as an art form was very foreign to me in those early years. The Hollywood Playhouse was run by 3 older individuals who were local favorites of the Hollywood community theater scene. Dolores Miller, a crackly, fiery woman who looked like Madame Mim from Disney's animated film The Sword and the Stone, Ron Hendricks, who was the choreography teacher and the gayest man to have the hottest daughter I've ever met, and James Michael, the short, bald, brilliant head of acting who would be my first true mentor. The 3 of them ran the children's theater, but you wouldn't know it based on the way they spoke to us and taught us. These days, they would probably be canceled for being so forward and adult with us, but back then it just felt refreshing and titillating, like we were equals and not children who needed some silly diversion to occupy our time. James, in particular, treated me as if we were in a Stella Adler class. For those of you who don't know, Stella Adler is a school of acting. I don't know why anyone would want to sleep on their life. It's a school of acting that is taught in like the best schools around the country, NYU, all of those types of places. These days, okay, I already read that. It didn't matter that we were doing a production of Peter Pan and I was playing Smee. He expected me to find that character's truth and not be generic in my choices. So, for the record, Smee is overweight because he has daddy issues and he looks up to Hook as his surrogate father. I remember one day we were doing an exercise that required us to get emotional. Most of us were in the single-digit age bracket, 10 at the oldest, and he wanted us to tap into our inner Julianne Moore. I finally got frustrated because I couldn't bring myself to connect with my emotions, and I asked him to do it, thinking that it would get him to concede that it was too hard even for him to just burst into tears. But not even 5 seconds later, this man full-on wept in front of a group of stunned children, and when I asked him how he did it, he took a breath and he said, I asked myself why. I was baffled. Why what? I responded, and he smiled and he said, well, that's for you to answer. I couldn't for the life of me figure out what the hell he meant. But now, some 30 plus years later, I ask why before every emotional scene I do, and like clockwork, tears pour out. James had such an outsized influence on me because he could tell that I had something more than just funny in me. I had pathos, and he demanded that I tap into that well of vulnerability instead of just relying on being funny or goofy. He weaponized my talent in a way that would give me durability and sustainability as a performer, not just make me a funny one-trick pony. Among my colleagues at the Hollywood Playhouse, there were two individuals who would also break out from the confines of the local Hollywood theater children's theater scene. Randy Rainbow and Seth Gable. I don't know who Seth is, but we definitely know who Randy Rainbow is. Before Randy was an outspoken political satirist and a musical aficionado, he was a somewhat shy and flushed young boy who came to life every time he opened his mouth to sing. His supremely high singing voice put the rest of us to shame. He could sing notes that would make some of the soprano girls in our class blush. Randy and I became quick friends. We were both somewhat chubby and came from households that were anything but standard and had a common love of musical theater. Seth, on the other hand, was already one of my best friends. At the age of 4, he and I attended Beth Shalom together. Back then, Seth had much more ethically unambiguous name of Kirschenbaum that he would later change to a more Italian Cosentino, and then the more elegant Gable, and then finally the more Hollywood-friendly and definitely not ethnic Howard Gable. We would constantly film our ridiculous spoofs of our favorite Spielberg movies like E.T., with me on an exercise bike and him popping his head out of the basket, and then we would do Back to the Future, where we reenacted the entire Earth Angels scene with an electric guitar and all. One day, I brought him to the Playhouse with me as a guest. The girls immediately fell in love with him and threw themselves at the debonair tween. Seth had zero interest in acting at the time, but I wanted him to come with me every week because nobody made me laugh more than he did. During a break, he held up a bag of Cheetos and told me that he had somehow stolen it from the vending machine by reaching his skinny little hand in and grabbing it. Thankfully, the statute of limitations has run its course, allowing me to disclaim this criminal anecdote. I told him that if he didn't sign up for class, I would tell the teachers what he did, and therefore I feel safe in saying that I guilted Seth Gable into becoming an actor. You're welcome, America. Who is this guy? Why don't I know who Seth Gable is? Anyway, while I excelled at acting, I was decelling at school. The stuff with my dad continued to really take up emotional bandwidth, and as a result, I was spiraling. My secret visits to be with his other family were eating me from the inside out. I would subsequently lie about doing my homework, and I wouldn't listen in class or care. I would flunk every single test because I never bothered to study. The school would call my mom in on a monthly basis, telling her that I essentially wasn't going to amount to anything. This is also why my mother found out that they had put me in all basic classes without consulting with her. She rightly suspected part of the reason was that I wasn't attempting to do anything was because they were treating me as less than capable. She told them that at the very least they had to place me in regular classes, which were slightly more challenging in that they didn't treat me like a Neanderthal in need of daycare. The common through line in this book is going to be the story of my mother advocating for me even when I wouldn't advocate for myself, and this is the beginning of that journey. By third grade, I was an absolute train wreck of a student, and my mom thought it was perhaps time for a change of scenery. As fate would have it, the headmaster of the Jewish day school, Rabbi Malofsky, had the emblazoned thousands of dollars, had embezzled, oh my, this man had embezzled thousands of dollars and bankrupted the entire institution, a real heroic assist to centuries-old cliche of anti-Semitic stereotyping. Subsequently, I would be forced to find a new elementary school. During the exodus from Beth Shalom Hebrew Day School, all of my best friends were relocating to a non-parochial school in Davie, Florida called the University School. You had to take an admissions test to get in there, and let's just say I didn't do what you would call well. In fact, I did so poorly that the head of the school, Mrs. Brennan, immediately denied my application. I was devastated. All my friends were going to be there, and I was going to be forced to go to a completely different school. My mother, however, was not going to let that happen. She booked an appointment with Mrs. Brennan and insisted that they give me a chance to attend, under the provision that they could remove me if I didn't meet academic expectations. The principal apparently was moved by my mother's passionate plea or unwillingness to accept no for an answer, and reluctantly gave me a waiver and admitted me into the school, albeit on a short leash. The first few years, I did fine enough that they couldn't find a catalyst to remove me. But by 7th grade, all bets were off. I was once again a disaster. My only interest was acting and playing pretend with my G.I. Joes. After one tragic report card filled with enough F's and D's to give Adele a hit single, enough F's and D's to give Adele a hit single. My mother told me that she was pulling me out of the school and sending me to a local public school, which had metal detectors for decorations at every entrance because kids brought in more knives than textbooks. As a single mother working day and night as a realtor and essentially using all of her hard-earned money to send me to private school, she was done throwing good money after bad. I begged her to reconsider, but she went even further and told me that she was not only sending me to this Dangerous Minds-themed school, but also pulling me from the Hollywood Playhouse. I was devastated. I was furious. Salem and Fringe are two of the shows he's known for. Oh, okay. And I was determined to do everything in my power to prevent her from this miscarriage of justice. I started by reaching out to all my friends and telling them to get their parents to rally behind me and call my mother out. My mom was suddenly getting bombarded with phone calls from random mothers pressuring her to reconsider her rash decision. I then had the head of the Hollywood Playhouse get involved and tell her it would be a terrible decision to pull me from the program. Anyone I could unite around my cause, I got to intervene. My mom was livid, but also tired of having the entire neighborhood assail her for being a monster parent, a false narrative that I conveniently created to get her to reconsider. Exhausted from the barrage of calls and still furious at my academic performance, she gave me one last chance and told me that if I didn't turn everything around by the end of the next semester, there would be no desperate phone call in the world that could save me. She was done effing around, and I could tell that there would be no more second chances despite my seemingly expert manipulation. So, the next day, I went to school and I allowed myself to fall in love with learning. Within a month, the teachers were baffled by the miraculous turnaround. Not only was I suddenly engaged, but everything was coming almost too easily. They had assumed that I was an idiot, not worth investing time in, and suddenly genuinely surprised that not only was I achieving goals the teacher set before me, but practically begging for more challenges. Seth is Ron Howard's son-in-law. Oh, gotcha. I soon told the teachers that I no longer wanted to be in the regular classes, but I wanted to be moved to honors. The first one I negotiated with was my history teacher. He was reluctant and dubious to move me, but after I harassed him for 2 straight weeks, he finally allowed me the rope to hang myself with, which he did not anticipate, however. I would quickly conquer everything thrown in my way and excel at it. Soon, I was moved on to honors English, science, and Spanish. Math was never going to be an option. I was moved on to honors English, science, and Spanish. Math was never going to be an option. I was, and still am, incapable of even the most simple arithmetic and sworn lifelong enemy of geometry. My gosh, is it me? Is it me? But in every other subject, a light bulb had gone off. Eventually, honors became AP, and every time a teacher would doubt my abilities, I would shove them back in their face and with my efforts, and I would work harder. My mom's gut had been right all along. It wasn't that I was incapable, it was that I was uninspired. My mother was and is my fiercest champion, and she fought everyone who doubted my abilities, including myself. At the end of 7th grade, the head of the school gave me an honorary award for the most improved student of the year. Among all of my accolades and successes, I think that one in particular still is the one my mother is the proudest of. While things were finally clicking into place at school, the absence of my father was still taking an enormous toll on me. Not only would I see him very sparingly, but when I did, it was always with this secret brother along for the ride, whom I was still sworn not to tell my mother that I had been introduced to. The 2 things that my father taught me very well were how to expertly lie and how to have a fun time. I would never not smile and enjoy his company. Every time I would see him, we would always do something exciting. One year, he took me to California to visit my uncles and cousins, and we went to Disneyland and Universal Studios, and another time he took me to Vegas, and I went to a burlesque show, which at 8 was really not something that I had the proper adjectivities to describe, although, let's just say, much like the dancers that night, the inside of my pants also put on quite a show. But perhaps the most seismic trip that he took me on was a trip with my brothers Jason and Jeffrey one year when I was 10. He flew us to New York City, where he had an apartment close to Times Square. Back then, this was not an ideal place to be staying in New York. The soundscape, even at 2 a.m., was sirens and pimps, and there was enough neon light breaking through the windows to create an indoor roller rink. During the day, we would visit all of the biggest sights, including the Twin Towers, which to a 10-year-old was among the coolest and most impressive structures that one could ever imagine. At night, he would take us to the theater. We saw 2 shows and an off-Broadway production of The Rothschild, directed by the renowned director Lonnie Price. And we saw the Broadway production of Fiddler on the Roof, starring the brilliant Chaim, I think that's how you say it, Topol, reprising his role from the film. While I had been to other shows in Florida, this was the first time I had ever heard of or been to Broadway. Sitting in the cavernous and stunning Gershwin Theater, future home of Wicked, I felt an urgency and a purpose. I would one day be on a stage like that. I didn't know when and I didn't know how, but I knew that I would do it. I had to. The Hollywood Playhouse was one thing, but professional theater was a whole different experience. From that day forward, I would ask my mom to take me to any and all shows coming through town. I saw Kathy Rigby in Peter Pan, Jerry Lewis in Damn Yankees, Sally Struthers in Grease, The Phantom of the Opera, Miss Saigon, Les Mis were all part of my theatrical youth. In the early 90s, with each show, I would grow more and more in love with the form, but in order to forge my own path in entertainment, I was going to have to move beyond children's theater and the pain of my early childhood and into a new phase of my life. Wow. Wow. It's gonna be a wild ride, I can tell already. Oh, sorry. The minute I stop reading, she can't handle it. She sleeps while I read through, but as soon as I like talk like me, she's like, Mom? Yeah, it is sad to think of that now, I agree. When you're typing, it has the face icon emoji. That's really funny. Wow. My eyes are twitching from so much reading, but it was wonderful. Oh, today I'm going to put up the agenda for the Roll for Slimes for this, of course Becca was filtered, of course she was, for this month. So anyone with an August birthday, she just kicked your phone off your belly. That's adorable. I wish you would have gotten a video of it. Yeah. All right, well, I'm gonna let her sleep a little longer and then I'm gonna feed her and then we're gonna get started with our day. What else? It's August 1st, so a lot of grab bags are gonna go out today, as they do every month. And we got some really good ones. I posted videos so you guys could see them. Oh, I know how to use Zoom. I'm not sure if you use them in a specific way to help. All right, I will see you guys later.